Let's get to it. And first, we're going to start at CO2, clumsily. And Chris says, Melissa Lanceman pointed out just now in the House of Commons, Ontario families will be out. It will cost them $625 more this year. That's net with the rebates factored in. So even with the carbon tax rebate, $625 a year is what the carbon tax will cost Ontario families this year. Here's the chart from the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Look at the bottom line. So that's the calculation on the government's own data, right? So that's pretty incredible. That's incriminating. So here's the Canadian Independent, and I've got three different versions of this clip. Everybody's commenting on this clip because Chrystia Freeland is like Neo in the Matrix, dodging bullets with this question. She does not want to answer this question whatsoever. And listen, here we go.
Sure. Minister, how much has the government collected in carbon taxes since you implemented it?
I didn't hear the last question.
How much has the government collected in carbon taxes since it was implemented?
So thanks for the question, and it gives me an opportunity to be really clear about the price on pollution. This is revenue neutral. All the money that is collected,
it was a pretty specific
all
question.
The money that is
just
collected
the number, how much
goes back directly to Canadians.
I only have limited time, Minister.
That is the key point.
How much has your government collected in carbon taxes?
Also an opportunity for me to point out that Manitoba families will be getting $1,200 this year.
Again, Minister, if I could just have the number, how much have you collected in carbon taxes?
The key point, which Conservatives consistently are trying to keep from Canadians, is that the price on pollution is completely revenue neutral.
Minister, it's a very straightforward question. Canadians want the answer to.
The money does not go into general revenues. It is returned to Canadians.
I didn't restart this video. This is just what our government does. Like, it would be hilarious if this was a skit parodying our government, but it's not. This is actually our government. I just want to show you another 30 seconds, just because it's so maddening and hilarious.
Canadians.
What is the dollar value of all carbon taxes collected since the tax was implemented?
The key point is that is money in the pockets of Canadians for Manitoba families.
It's so egregious. It's so egregious. I can't believe it. The Canadian Independent is responding to this. He says, Canadian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Freeland in the Finance Committee today refuses to answer how much her government has collected in carbon tax. When called out on $2 billion that has not been accounted for, she claims it's going to small businesses shortly. Sorry, we didn't even get to that part of the clip because, 2 minutes is a long time. Maybe we should watch it before the end of the show. Marty is responding to the same clip. He says the finance minister refuses to say how much the government collects in carbon tax. Why? Because the government takes in more than they pay out. Ooh, I think that's true. I think that's it. Nailed it. Exactly bang on. The carbon tax scam costs Canadians more than they get back in rebates. Justin Trudeau is hiking that tax on 23% on April 1st. So that is 10 days, right? Not very long. Stephen Gilbo, I'm ballparking, 9 days? Soon. Stephen Gilbo is responding to this. This is all, carbon tax, theft, taxation is theft. Maybe that should be the title today. Stephen Gilbo is responding to Marky Walsh, and Marky says, staff in Jenny Bryan's provincial lobbying firm established a second federal lobbying firm working from the same office after Pierre Poilievre's leadership win in 2022, presumably to undermine him. And Gilbo says, when Poilievre talks about taking Canada's carbon rebates out of Canadians' pockets, he's actually doing a favor to his chief advisor, Jenny Bryan, and her firm's big industry clients we don't want to pay to pollute the planet. He's clearly in it for himself and his rich friends. Oh, sorry, Jenny Bryan is his rich friend. So they're obviously in it together. She created this this lobbying firm to lobby for evil carbon things or whatever. That's the only reason. And Freedom Girl is responding here, and she says, the carbon tax is a liberal scam. And so the rest of the world, this is carbon output, source global carbon atlas. And so Canada is 1.5%. But fundamentally, any argument over the hoax carbon tax or the hoax climate change is continuing to be trapped in the wizard circle. Climate change is a hoax. All of the taxes need to go. Governments should not tax air. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. Traitorous governments tax air. That's something we should not tolerate. Period. And that's where we are. Our government is raising the tax on air 23% on April 1st. And if we don't break out of this wizard circle, that climate change is something that's terrible that we need to get out of, then we're not going to solve our problem. We need to stop spraying the skies. We need to stop the geoengineering that's going on. We need to absolutely stop that. We need to stop taxing farmers because we need to have food produced because we need to eat, and I'm not eating bugs. Chocolate cereal doesn't make itself. Thank you very much. But we need to get out of this wizard circle. I'm not going to tell you Canada's 1.5%, so we don't need a carbon tax, blah, 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 blah. Arguing against the carbon tax is participating in the wizard circle. Saying we need to be net zero by 2050, participating in the wizard circle. We need to destroy the wizard circle. We need to say carbon tax is a tax on air, and that's treasonous, period. And we're not doing it anymore. We're done. We're done with this treasonous government. Treasonous communist government. Here is the rich friends, money talks. There's a lot of money, and I equate money to momentum, right? If you've spent $1 billion, well, what's another billion, right? Like there's all that $1 billion momentum behind that first spend. So, you're pot committed, you're going to spend more money, billions and billions and billions. They, the Stephen Gilbos of the world, want to accuse the conservatives of wanting to maintain their rich friends because the conservatives have friends in the oil and gas industry and so on and so forth. And so they use that attack. But really, the money, the rich, comes from going along with the DEI standards and going along with the carbon communism, right? And in the United States, they want to spend $50 trillion with a T to get to net zero. It's not possible. It's fictional, but look at all those zeros, right? That's money in the bank, baby. And that's government guaranteed money. We're going to spend $50 trillion of government money. There isn't enough liquid money to cover that. Here's Senator Kennedy.
What is carbon dioxide?
I went to high school, but that's carbon dioxide is a gas.
Plant food, that's less than 1% of the atmosphere.
Okay.
I'm not a professional to talk about carbon dioxide so much, but
Well, you want us to abolish it, right?
no, there's always going to be carbon dioxide.
Right. So what is it you want us to do? Let me
I've shown this clip before. It's 6 minutes. I thought this was the impactful part where he's asking, like, specifically, you want to spend $50 trillion? Hold on, because he gets really mad about it. It's super funny. This is a different clip than the one I expected. He's just informing this Olympian person that it's going to cost you $50 trillion to get carbon neutral, and that's not really feasible. So they want to spend $50 trillion was my point, basically. And the $50 trillion isn't actually going to get us to a product that works. It's spending $50 trillion on a fugazi, like a fake. It's not ever going to work. And they know it's not ever going to work. So and we're going to pursue it until we're broke. And then they're going to say, oh, I don't know how that happened. It was probably the evil Russians, right? Like, that's how evil these people are. They have absolutely no qualms about lying directly to our faces. Here's Danielle Smith, and she's talking about how much oil and gas is in the ground in Alberta, and actually the practicality, the logistical realities of Alberta oil and gas. Here's Danielle Smith.
One is that we have 170 billion barrels of proven reserves of oil, most of that in our oil sands. That's 5 times the proven reserves in America as a whole. We have 200 trillion cubic feet of gas proven reserves. That is essentially inexhaustible. We have so much gas that we just need to find new uses for it. We will likely they will come up with new sources of delivering energy before we run out of gas. We are the largest exporter to the United States. We give them more of our product than Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Iraq combined. Number one is that we have 100.
That's pretty wild, right? I mean, the numbers there, and I'm inclined to believe Danielle Smith. I don't think she's making things up, right? There's a lot of oil and gas. Why isn't Canada self-sufficient? Why do we import foreign oil? Why don't we put Canadians to work to build pipelines across Canada? Why don't we set the price of gas at the pump at 70 cents a liter forever? To say we're going to pump out enough oil and gas and refine it in country to make the price of oil and gas, and we're going to build pipelines across the country as well to make the price of oil and gas as cheap as possible, because that's how you solve that's how you solve poverty. That's how you make everything super cheap. You don't give everybody money. You make everything as cheap as you possibly can. And by cheap, I mean you spend government money to create, because the government can spend that money to create the infrastructure without with a longer view than like me or you. I would have a really hard time raising the capital to build the pipeline that's in my head, the north-south, east-west pipeline, like the cross, right, of Ontario. People would love that imagery. But you build this pipeline. The north-south one would be to distribute to the province, right? So you don't have to run trucks up and down the province. You can just tap off the pipeline and take it to just run local trucks, like local trucks to fill up the gas stations, et cetera, whatever you need. You have the heavy, the air fuel, the refined gasoline, right? And you tap off what you need and you do what you need to do to get the delivery done locally, right? And maybe even you do local pipelines under the ground, maybe, right? Why not? And safely, obviously, but you make things as cheap as possible. You make it as cheap as possible to make as good a product as you can. And then you unleash people to do that. You say, here, if you can buy pasta for $1 for a kilogram of weight of pasta, here's $1 kilogram of pasta. Can you sell that pasta for something? You put some sauce on it. Sure, the sauce costs $1 too. Your startup cost now is $2 for the pasta, right? For the food itself. Can you sell that for more? Yeah, a kilogram of pasta you could sell for more than $2 probably, right? So you cook that up and like I'm oversimplifying, but if you as a government endeavor to make things easy for your citizens, they will endeavor to make products that people want to buy, and then they will scale it, right? And people have done that over and over again. And all we're doing is punishing people for nothing, for being the wrong skin color, for living in Canada for their whole lives, for building the damn country. We're just being punished. These people should be thrown out. We should not tolerate this anymore. CTV News Winnipeg is reporting this. Premier asks suppliers to keep gas flowing during pipeline shutdown. So there's an unexpected shutdown, and now there's problems. Have twin pipelines. Like, I don't think one pipeline's enough now. Maybe we need 7 or 8 pipelines across Ontario, right? All in the same like fenced area, but it'd be like heavy twinned, and then like airline twinned, and then gas twin, diesel twin. How many pipelines do we need? We need a ton of pipelines. Let's build pipelines. Drill, baby, drill. Manitoba's premier, because you don't want to be in a situation where you got to spend $1 a liter on gas when everybody else is paying 70 cents, right? Jeepers creepers. We don't want to start trucking gas. That's crazy. Do you know how much that would clog up the freeways? And we just got rid of all the trucks because we built pipelines. Manitoba's premier is urging gas suppliers to refrain from hoarding gasoline following an unplanned pipeline shutdown in the province earlier this week. We need to ensure that there's a regular entry into the province of 50,000 barrels a day, Premier Canoe said Thursday. But we also need to make sure that the supply is being distributed equitably across the different regions who need it and across different sectors of the economy. So soon there's going to be, you know, that Family Guy meme where they've got hold on, I'll find it. So yeah, this is the gas stations will be given a chart like this. This is what they mean by distributed equitably, right? There's switch the okay, not okay, right? The only people who will get gas are the people who are these colors. It's crazy. However, he's trying to say that, we'll make sure to work for you. Canoe said his government has told oil and gas companies they need to provide access to suppliers and distributors so gas station pumps don't go dry. What you're seeing right now is a result of market inefficiencies. Oh, sure. WAB knows, definitely. Canoe's plea to gas companies, comes days after Imperial Oil announced a 3-month shutdown of a pipeline carrying gas, diesel, and jet fuel from Gretna to Winnipeg. The shutdown is in order to do preventative maintenance. Fuel is being transported into Manitoba by trains, cars, and trucks as a result. Boo. This is not a situation that any of us, I think, were expecting for spring, Canoe said, but given the hand that we've been dealt, we're playing our cards in such a way that we are leaning on the big oil and gas companies to ensure there are good prices and adequate supply for you, the people of Manitoba. I think it's really funny that they've vilified all these oil and gas companies. Like, you're killing the planet. We've got to shut down. We're gonna stop investing in you. We're not investing in you anymore. Blah, 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 blah. They don't invest in Canada anyway. I'll show you that in a minute. But there's all these people, there's all these activists saying, I'm going to glue myself to this concrete, or I'm going to destroy the Mona Lisa or whatever if you don't divest from oil and gas and the rest. And now we need 50,000 gallons a day. 50,000 is a lot. I'm an oil company, and we need to do preventative maintenance, man. 50, figure it out, I guess. I don't know. Maybe if you invested in some stocks, it might be easier to solve that problem. Right? But now, right, WAB Canoe, hey guys, can we get that 50,000 barrels? Yeah, we're a little busy. Call us back tomorrow. Right? Like, it's all about relationships. Canoe acknowledged gas prices have gone up this week, but said that it's due to an increase in global oil prices. Yeah, it's not that gas shutdown thing that happened. He said his government is keeping a close eye on global oil prices and its impact at the pumps. And if we start to see that locally because of this pipeline situation, then our government is going to take further steps to keep gas affordable for you. I wonder what that is. Just cash money? Throw money at it? Jeepers creepers. As long as they're giving it out equitably, right? Here is an NDPer who is just making the case that the earth is on fire, and if Canada just gives more taxes to Justin Trudeau or whatever, that'll make it better. It's quite something. These people are ideologically captured, and I don't think they're looking at reality. They're looking at their rhetoric and saying this all matches up, and there's no other possible explanation for all of these things. The only thing that could be causing this is CO2, climate change, and exactly what all of the scientists agree on. And so get your safe and effective shot. It's the same thing. It's the same zealotry, right? Here's just part of this, because I couldn't even get through all of it when I was proctoring it before the show to show you. And I was listening at 2 times speed, and I was like, this is too much. Here we go. This is too much. This is way too much. Here we go.
Canadians know that we are in a climate emergency. They are feeling the impacts. Wildfires have ravaged our country. It means that not only are communities evacuated from their homes, but just this week, a young child in Edmonton described breathing the air as, "It feels like an elephant is sitting on my chest."
Do you remember asthma? You remember asthma in the 80s and 90s? We had a kid who had asthma, and I think they used that rhetoric there too. Like, oh, the elephant's sitting on his chest, blah, 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 blah. And like he was allowed to stand when it was really cold, but we were all supposed to go out. And I was like, how come he gets to stay? It hurts for us to breathe too, don't you know? Back when Canada was a cold country. So the elephant sitting on my, like, sure, I had a whole tickle in my throat all last summer because of whatever the heck they're dropping on the trees and all of the burning that they're doing that makes New York's skyline look red in the smoke or whatever. I mean, that was bothersome too, but it didn't seem to bother the government at all. They continued burning all those acres of forest, right? And continued spraying all through the winter to make sure that we didn't have a winter. I'll just continue this a little bit more because it's so crazy.
We are witnessing extreme weather, horrific pollution. This is our day-to-day life. Hundreds of people died in the heat domes in British Columbia. And
there's no quantifying. Hundreds of people died in the heat domes in British Columbia. Those were overdoses, honey. Your government handed the drugs to those people as they were dying. They were like, oh, just one more injection. Can you push the plunger? And your staff were like,
we have a government
heat domes.
The day after declaring a climate emergency, purchased the Trans Mountain Pipeline.
And they haven't done a damn thing to develop it. It's very, very frustrating, the zealotry and madness. Here's Elizabeth May for more zealotry and madness.
If she doesn't...
I want to preface this because somebody responded to me and said, zombie fires are real. They're real. They're real on Twitter. And I was like, really? No indication that it was burning for months? You didn't notice that? You couldn't put it out if you put a hose on it? I don't think that's true. And so here's Science News, and this is since 1921, right? This is published in 2021. Okay, so this is a couple years old. I put into Google, I put into one of the other search engines, first appearance of zombie fires, and I found first appearance of zombies in popular culture. And I was like, that's not what I'm looking for. And so I went to Google because sometimes it does return things that are interesting. And zombie fires started getting talked about in 2021 because they weren't talked about before that because they don't exist. They're made up. They're nonsense, illogical nonsense. It's possible that these things exist, but I don't think it's a widespread problem in Canada right now. I don't think that's true. It's possible that these exist, so maybe don't dismiss it completely out of hand. It's the internet, take it with a grain of salt. But they just started talking about these things in 2021, and if you do a search for zombie fires, there's a big push talking about how there's fires lurking, and they're going to light wildfires earlier than the wildfire season, and we're seeing that play out. So it's justification. I think it's a loaded term. I think that they've injected it into the zeitgeist. And Elizabeth May uses it, and I wanted to show you exactly what I could find. Zombie fires hibernate underground, they say. The science thing says. Blanketed by snow, they smolder through the cold, surviving on the carbon-rich fuel of peat and boreal soil, moving very slowly, just 100 to 500 meters over the winter. Come spring, the fires reemerge near the forest they previously charred, burning fresh fuel well before the traditional fire season starts. Until now, these zombie fires have remained relatively mysterious to science, known mostly from firefighter anecdotes. Right. Zombie fires, 100% real, says Elizabeth May. Here's Elizabeth May on zombie fires.
Doesn't agree that the well-being of every single Canadian, as she exhorted in her speech, includes that we face the fact that there's a very worrying fuel load across the country in our forests, that the forest fires of summer 2023 continued to burn underground and under the snow and are called zombie fires, that the oceans have hit temperature increases we've never seen before. And I ask her if she's also committed to finding climate solutions that work.
Nonsense. Zombie fires. And the person who responds basically says, well, I'll show you. It's fine. Well, let's watch it. Let's watch it because why not?
Member for Lethbridge.
The Liberals, and I suppose the Green member as well, along with the NDP members, they like to tout this line that somehow the carbon tax is saving the planet. We just don't have any evidence to that. None. Zero. I have in front of me the Climate Change Performance Index. It shows that Canada is performing at number 62. Further to that, the stats show that Canada hasn't met a single one of its carbon targets. Not a single one. So instead, we just have a tax that is punitive in nature, a tax that goes after Canadians for just buying groceries, heating their homes, driving their vehicles. These are daily necessities in Canadian life. Exactly. Shame on those members for punishing them just for living.
Only traitorous governments tax the air. I don't think there's any way around that. And it's, again, completely intolerable. Here's money I was talking about mid last set of tabs that Canada doesn't invest in. Canada, none of the Western governments do. They invest in anything but their own country's stock market. And Jeff Winger says this has gotten political. Domestic pension funds over the world have invested in anything and everything except their own country's stock market. The CEOs were keen to note that 4% weight in Canada's equities is less than the amount they have allocated to China. So Canada's more invested in China's stock market than its own stock market. That's pretty crazy. Jeff is going through things. He says, just like that, Canada enters the pension wars thread. A country participates in the pension wars when politicians and or influential members of society push large financial institutions to direct investment towards their domestic stock market. What triggered the latest salvo in Canada? This letter from 90 plus prominent Canadian CEOs. It made a splash 2 weeks ago. In it, the CEOs lamented that the pension system's ever-declining allocation to Canadian stocks, which now make up just 4% of their collective asset base. So it's gotten political. So people were... The idea that Canadian pensions aren't investing in Canadian companies is being directed for political reasons. And he continues. Some of the more prominent pensions hold even less than 4%. Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, which has such solid name recognition that many of us just call it teachers, has 0.7% of its hundreds of billions in listed Canadian equity. Granted, the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan has Canadian private equity, real estate, and the timberland is on Canadian soil. But don't let details get in the way of a headline or a stump speech. The pension wars will not wait for explanations. Should these pensions start moving money, this is where Canada's entry into the pension wars gets interesting. The MSCI All Country World Index, the well-known global equity benchmark, has a certain mix, 63.8 in U.S. stocks, 2.7 in Canadian stocks. U.S. is 24 times the investment of Canada. Canada's three largest pension plans are similar in size to the big U.S. pensions, but look at their size in the context of their respective stock markets. If you shift $1 billion or $100 billion in the U.S. stock market, who cares? But in Canada, these sums matter. Yeah. Yep. So if you want to read more on pension wars, on the pension wars theme, to see this one in Japan and Korea, it was well received. So there you go. The same is happening in Japan and Korea. So the money of things seems to be an aspect towards manipulating us into behavior that they want to see. I wanted to explain this graphic just a little bit more. It says asset management in the stock market, comparing the Canadian stock market to the American stock market. So on the left-hand side is the American stock market, and it says massive U.S. pension funds assets under management are just a tiny fraction of the S&P 500's total market value. But in Canada, Canada's big pension funds manage similar sums to those US pension funds, but the size of the stock market is much smaller. So their moves of money, the 100 billion or a billion, is much more impactful. And that's something to pay attention to. Really. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadapoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful